Hey guys, BJ the Brave here. It's that time of the week again. We are back with the Meta Snapshot. We are now into week 3 of the Infinity Evolved expansion. And guys, the meta's pretty settled, to be honest. I think it's pretty fair to say that the decks that are most powerful from this expansion are kind of well established at this point. We are still seeing some interesting tweaks and some interesting innovations, which we're going to go into today. But I'm pretty certain that this snapshot is a fairly accurate picture of where the meta is right now. So what we're going to do, as always, we're going to dive in, look at the 4 tiers, and then we're going to show you some example deck lists. Sound good? Let's get on with it. All right, first of all, this is what I think, as of the 2nd of August, this is what I think the meta looks like. How is this different from last week, and what is this telling us about the meta? Well, I think it's fair to say that the top 2 classes right now are Runecraft and Swordcraft. Now, with Rune, we are seeing a spell boost rune with some evolution in there where we're starting to bring in some of the Earthright mechanics with the spell boost, the complementary stuff. So it's not sort of pure spell boost, although those decks are still doing very well. But it is still a spell boost ultimately into Decline, late Kion and Kakaitis decks, right? So that deck is really phenomenal. It can basically outlast anything in the game. And therefore, any kind of control deck that you're thinking about playing, you always have to think, well, what are you going to do against Rune then? Because it can outlast you, basically. It can do the end game better than you. It has fantastic control tools. Norman now gives it fantastic heal tools. It kind of just has it, pretty much everything. Now, mid-range, so there are 2 versions of, still both mid-range, but one's slightly more aggro with the tentacles and one's slightly more grindy. So we're going to show you both versions of those decks as well. So let's dive in and just quickly take a look at those. So this is the Runecraft deck. If we just take a look here. Yeah, this is like a pretty typical meta deck right now. Some people only run a single L device and put the 8-drop in as another win con, but this is fairly stable. It's as I say, you've got things like Penelope, Elvice are in there to kind of and Melv to kind of they sort of sew up the early game, right? That's where Spell Boost struggled a little bit in the past. So that's really helped, I think, this class. And then once you get into the mid game, this deck just takes over. Burgeon is like another Anangria. The Onion coming back every time is really helpful. And then, of course, the powerhouses, William for the AoE, Norman, whatever you need. Do you want the heal? Do you want the draw? And of course, in the late game, this deck is just phenomenal. You can do things like save your demonic calls. They go down to 0 cost. You play them out on turn 10, trade 2 of them in, then you play Kion, and you end up having like a 16 attack monster that can hit face. And it just even things like Haven Ward and things that try to kind of grind and go late, they just die from almost full health. It's really phenomenal. And of course, you've always got the decline into Kakaitos, Ruler of Kakaitos finish as well. So there's the QR code if you want to grab that. Now, in terms of the Swordcraft, this is a slightly more aggro version of the Swordcraft. You can see basically the main differences are like in the top end, you've got the 3 Ravenous Tentacles, the 3 Odins, and the Centaur. So this version is looking to support Albert in closing the game out much quicker. A nice steady curve and early tempo as well. We do run 3 copies of the Hounds of War in this version too, because it's not only a nice 3-drop to trade, but obviously on the 6 as well. You get a card that doesn't cost you evolve to still put a load of pressure on. It also deploys 3 bodies, which has really nice synergy with Gildaria. And as you'll notice, we're not running the 5-drop Luminous Mage, so we're not getting as many bodies out, and so that's where Hounds of War helps as well. So that's a slightly more aggro version, but then you've got the more grindy mid-range version as well. This one does have the Amelias in there. It does have 2 copies of the Luminous Mage in there. And the late game looks a bit different. We've only got 2 Odins, but what we have got is we've got 2 Olivias. So the Amelias and the Olivias, they allow you to kind of draw into your deck and therefore go longer. We still have a single copy of Ravening Tentacles. I think this is quite an interesting little tech because it's actually, in this deck, it obviously is reach, but it also is the 5 heal as well. And we don't really have any heal. It's a slight weakness in the Swordcraft deck. but that heal is massive. It can really help out in the mirror match when you're kind of both trying to get your Alberts off first and things like that. So yeah, a single copy of that. But the big difference there is obviously the 3 Amalias at the top end. Now you can run the new card, the new 8-drop as well in there if you want a single copy instead of the Ravening Tentacles to make it even more grindy. It's really just a matter of flavour at this point, guys, but this is ultimately what top tier 1 decks are looking like. Okay, so let's dive back into our tier 2. So in tier 2, I have got Hybrid Artifact dropping a tier this week. Last week I had it at the bottom of tier 1. I still think that it is right on the cusp between tier 2 and tier 1. It's very good into mid-range Sword. It deals with Sword quite handily, so that makes it a fantastic deck right now and a good prey deck. However, it's not as good into Spell Boost. And it's also quite a... it's quite a complicated deck. It's kind of a bit unforgiving. Like if you fuse the wrong parts, for example, you get ahead of yourself, fuse the wrong parts, and your opponent's paying attention, they can kind of punish you sometimes. But don't get me wrong, the power level's phenomenal, and the new cards that did get added this set have really enhanced this build. Combo Roach is still another really good prey decks. I'd say Artifact, Combo, and Aggro Abyss, they're all good prey decks, right? Like Combo Roach can do very well into both of the tier 1 decks. So Combo Roach is a very difficult deck to play, and it didn't get a ton of like new things. I'd say it got some new tools, things have enhanced the deck, but maybe not so much as compared with the other classes. But in the hands of a skilled player, it's very good. I think it's a great tournament deck because you know you're going to be going up against Spell Boost and Sword, and therefore Combo Rush is very good. It's not quite as good on ladder because on ladder you can be getting anything, right? And then there's a lot of things that can like really ruin your day, like Storm Dragon and just all sorts of random stuff that can just really hurt you when you're trying to play it on ladder. So when I'm thinking about where it is in the tier list, I'm putting it in tier 2 because it's not quite as good on ladder as these two, but it's very, very good in the tournament. I'd say it's a tier 1 tournament deck, but probably tier 2 overall if we're bringing ladder into effect. Now, the Aggro Abyss is, in many ways, I made a video, go and check it out, called Best Deck on Ladder, and I think in many ways, Aggro Abyss is one of the best decks for ladder, just because it's very, very fast. So even if you lose, like you know, you probably play 2 games in the time that you play 1 game with other classes, and it's just going to cheese a load of wins. It's just really powerful, and it's one of those decks where many decks just won't have an answer. If they don't have the answer, they're done. And even things like Spell Boost, like obviously if they get the Norman off, get the 8 heal, they can recover and they can stabilize. But if they don't draw the Norman, then they'll just lose, right? So Aggro Abyss is a bit of a polarizing deck, but it's quick, it's fast, and it's a good, powerful deck to run on ladder. Puppet Portal is a deck that's kind of like, you always feel with Puppet like you've got a 50-50 chance against everything, right? So Puppet Portal is it's competitive pretty much against everything. There are obviously matchups where you basically need to be more conscious of storing your puppets and then playing Orcus and trying to get quite a lot of like burn damage in 1 turn. But it's a pretty powerful deck. It's got nice removal and it's fairly consistent. Control mid range Abyss. I don't know what we're calling this deck still. I think it's mid range really, slightly late mid range. But this deck's really good. Again, the biggest problem that this deck's really got is that it's just when you're dealing with things like Spell Boost and stuff, it's like, do you really want to be trying to grind out late? So you've got to switch it up and try to go a little bit more aggro in that matchup. But it's actually a very, very powerful deck, and there have been some people putting together some really impressive win streaks with this deck at high rank. So I would definitely say that these 5 are slightly underneath Sword and Spell Boost, but above the rest, and that's why I have them in tier 2. So let's take a quick look at those decks. All right, so first and foremost, we have got Artifact. Says tier 1 here. This should actually say tier 2. But basically, here's the QR code. This is the deck. Now, personally, the only card I don't really have from this expansion is Karula yet, so I've not really been able to play it much. I've not really played this. I played it a lot in set 1, but set 2 I've not really played Artifact much. But this is definitely a good representation of what a strong meta deck looks like. Excuse me. The Catapult's obviously a nice new addition. Things like Carnelia and Flight of Icarius, just giving protection and bonuses to the multitude of copies that you're going to be making of the 5-drops, right? Whether it's from Doomrai, or whether it's from Ralmia, or Karula, or of course, who could forget Alouette, right? So it's just easy to overwhelm your opponent. Making the betas now and just spawning a shed load of them and just chipping your opponent down works really well. And then you've got the powerful end game in Orcus and Sylvia as well. Combo Roach. Few versions of the deck knocking about. A couple of new additions. Ambush is really nice for removal, just to keep you in the game for longer. Gardens and Lure helps you course correct your hands. It's very, very good. And Titania gives you that guaranteed fairy every turn, so you're able to set up combos. Now, I've got a single copy of Olivia here. Some people are running the new Limaga 7-drop. I think both of those are very viable options. I can't remember who I got this deck from, but it was one of the top decks. So yeah, this is like I say, tier 1 meta deck in terms of tournaments, but I'd say overall on ladder, slightly less consistent and very difficult to play. I would make it a solid tier 2 deck. Then we got the Abyss Aggro. There's a QR code. This deck hasn't really changed much from last week. Really, really solid deck, guys. Just 6 1-drops is phenomenal out the gate, right? And then you're obviously getting bats, you're getting ghosts, so your ghosts can attack face. Your bats can attack face if you combo with Ariel. You've obviously got your Shadow Crypt to set up combos. You can play that, and then into next turn you can play the Exilia, which gets stronger the wider the board is. And of course, you've got your Gravies for helping you to clean up the board and push more damage, and Odin as the big finish. So that is Aggro Abyss. Portalcraft showed you this deck. Don't forget, I've got deck guides for most of these. If you go check out my channel, I've got much more. I'll go into much more depth and show you gameplay with pretty much all of these decks. And I've got a good one on Puppet where we brought Kakaitis in, which kind of really interesting because it gives it a really nice competitive end game into some of those grindier matches. This deck's pretty powerful, to be honest, and it's probably one of the more, I'd say this is one of the more powerful all-rounders. If Abyss Aggro is a powerful polarizing deck, this is one of the more powerful all-rounders. You'll always have a 50-50 chance. And the Control Abyss or Mid-Range Abyss version looks like this. This was the tournament winning deck, so if you go and check out my video that says Secret Meta deck, it was this because it actually took down the official an official beta tournament, and it's really interesting. It's a little bit different to some of the other mid-range combos. I've called it Sticky Abyss because it's all about playing down a board that really sticks in things like Little Miss Bowmancer and Undead Soldiers. It's actually quite a lot of fun to play this deck, and if you enjoy the idea of like an undead horde that's just relentless, this is kind of like the deck for you for sure. Okay, so back to the tier list then. So in tier 3, I have actually got Wardhaven dropping down, sadly dropping down a tier. And I wasn't sure because obviously Wardhaven is a incredible matchup into Combo Roach and well, Forestcraft in general, to be honest. You're pretty much, I would say it's like a 90-10 matchup in favour of Wardhaven, that super powerful. So if we see Forestcraft taking over the meta, then Ward goes up a little bit. It's also pretty decent against a lot of other things. The problem is that mid-range sword, particularly the slightly more grindy version, can actually outgrind Wardhaven, which is pretty sad. to be honest, like that shouldn't be the case, but it is. And as we already know, Spell Boost is the best late game, so that beats Wardhaven too. And so Wardhaven just gets really kind of punished by the top 2 meta decks, which is the main reason why it's dropped a tier for me right now on ladder. I still think it's a powerful deck against pretty much everything else. It does really, really well against pretty much everything else, and I've got a spicy list to share with you on that. Earth Rune is a different way of playing Runecraft, but the question really is, why would you play a different way? Because it's just not as powerful as the Spell Boost. It's a little bit more of a tempo orientated deck. I'll show you the list in a minute. Speaking of tempo, we got Tempo Fairy, another alternative way to Roach. If you want a lower skill ceiling on playing Forestcraft, then Tempo Fairy is the way to go. It feels a bit more fun, a bit easier, should I say, not more fun. It feels a bit easier and less intense to play on ladder. It wins by, it still runs Roach, but you haven't got a lot of the combo pieces to make massive Roach combos. You can still do like mini combos, and that's the whole point of the deck, is to just establish the board, take over with tempo, and chip damage your opponent to death. Problem is that when you're playing the top two decks, so for example, against mid-range sword, Tempo Fairy actually has a pretty good matchup, does really well into it, but it doesn't do that well into Spell Boost, whereas Combo Roach does do very well into Spell Boost. Why? Because chip damage against Spell Boost is dangerous, because you, for example, chip 8 damage off, and then they play Norman and they heal, and it's kind of just negated all that work that you did, and now you don't have a big combo to finish the game with. Whereas Combo Roach actually has... The Combo Roach can basically just collect the pieces and go on then, Spell Boost, you just sit there on 20 health, and on turn 9 or 10 I'll just kill you from full health. And that's why Combo Roach is probably the ideal prey deck right now into the meta. Now, we've got Storm Dragon in tier 3. I think Storm Dragon is a bit like Aggro Abyss. It's not as consistent as Aggro Abyss, but it's very, very powerful. It can win games easily. It can cheese games, and it's just a bit inconsistent. And that's the main reason why I've put it in tier 3. I think this deck's got... I think it's got a little bit of potential to be higher, to be honest. There's been a little bit of playing around with, including myself, there's been a little bit of playing around with making it slightly more mid-range, and the idea there is that you've still got the aggro package, you're still going to win through aggro, but the idea is that you the idea is that you are able to control the board a little bit. So where you'd be inconsistent, you're able to actually just control the board until you assemble pieces. So the idea is that it drives the consistency up. There's a little bit more potential to be had. I still think there's a bit more refining to be done to optimize the Storm Dragon list. Next up, we got Cage Sword. Again, similar to what I said about Earth Rune, it's another powerful sword deck, guys. It's fun if you like Cage Mitsu. It's just not as good as the tier 1 sword deck, so why would you play it unless you just love Cage Mitsu? But it's a pretty solid deck. It's still the sword class, so it's pretty powerful. Next up, we got the Ramp Dragon, and again, Ramp Dragon is it's one of the more fun decks I've played this season. I'm still not sure that the final deck is optimized yet, and so, Dragon's still deck builders out there. There's still some more work to do, but I do see people posting strong win streaks with Ramp Dragon at top levels. So if you can go on one of those streaks where you can get the right pieces together, it's very powerful. Like, the power ceiling is high for Ramp Dragon. It's just, it's kind of inconsistent. You've got to find the ramp pieces. You've got to find the Fenny. And if you don't, then the whole thing kind of just falls apart a little bit. So very high power ceiling, but inconsistent. And that's kind of like a theme, right, in a lot of the tier 3 decks. All right, let's take a look at the decks then. Okay, so... starting with, I'm going to share with you this list that went on a massive win streak. I think it was 14 at Master Diamond from Saki Kabara, and this was on Twitter, and I want to show you this deck. This is pretty cool. What he's basically done with this deck is he's taken the ward package, but what he's done is added in a few, just a sprinkle, of good amulets. So Dose of Holiness obviously gives you solid removal in the early game, which is a weakness sometimes of the ward deck. So you've got this solid removal that also heals, right? So restore 1 defense. You've also got a single copy of Darkhaven Grace, which is just like one of the best cards in the class, right? So you kind of almost always want to run this when you're playing Haven. And of course, in this deck, we don't go anywhere without the Serene Sanctuaries. Now, because you've got 3 that are under 3 cost, he runs a single copy of Rodeo, and I think this is really clever because it helps thin your deck, so you're going to draw into your other things more consistently. And it also means that when you play Rodeo, because you're going to get the Dose of Holiness, you can deal 4 damage to something immediately, all without even using Evo. If you do want to use a Super Evo, not only will Rodeo obviously attack and kill something, but it will destroy another enemy follower, which is highest, and deal 1 damage to all followers. So Really nice answer to like barrier units if you're playing sword and they've just Emilia'd, or if you're playing against I don't know, Norman, and he brings out the barrier what you call them, golems. So just a really interesting little tech there. And then he also runs a single Lapis as well. You know, yes, it's an Odin meta. Lapis being Odin is just shockingly terrible, but they probably try and target a Wilbur earlier on, so Lapis often just sneaks through. They don't always know whether you're running Lapis or not as well. Yeah, this deck's actually pretty good. I've been playing it a little bit and doing okay with it. But like I said, it's like the main problems are that it still struggles a little bit into. I'd say it's a slightly more even match with Sword, but it does struggle into Rune. But the mid-range grindy swords can do quite well, but that is where Lapis can help. Like if they don't Odin Lapis and you get mid-range sword, then Lapis is actually really going to help you have a chance in that matchup. Okay, so next up we have the Earth Rune. Here's a nice deck for you guys if you want a different way to play play Runecraft. This is more of a tempo deck, and as you can see at the top end we have the new Lilanthem, and the idea here is you're gonna build up a hell of a load of Earthright, and this card just comes down and it's like a really sticky wink on at the end, and you've also got Odins to help burn down as well. But the whole point of this deck is like a really nice curve the whole way through, so it's a much more tempo-y kind of focused deck. It doesn't have as good AoE. You can put the Arcane Explosion in though to help. It's just not as good as, you know, it will lose to the Spell Boost Rune deck. But one day, guys, this deck's going to be a problem. But again, why would you play this when you've got the other Rune deck? That is the main thing. Next up, we've got Tempo Fairy, and as I said earlier, this is a little bit easier on the brain to play if you're a Forestcraft lover. Nice new cards in Cynthia, Fairy Fencer, Titania. This is just a really good tempo card, Cynthia, really making use of the fairies. And we're also playing triple Area of the Woods because generally you win the game by turn 10 anyway, so you're only ever really going to see one Area of the Woods, so you just about getting consistency in there. The other thing is that she's a great target for a Super Evo, right, because she's giving you 3 fairies, and of course they can attack first. And this deck is all about chip damage, right? So you want to be getting Arya out early, you want to be getting her on 6 ideally, so that the fairies can really start adding to that tempo chip damage. Okay, now we got Storm Dragon. Here we go. So this is my latest version of Storm Dragon. Like I say, I do think that there are some tweaks to be made, but we're making use of the new pre-worm blade, right? We can just keep adding +1 to things. The fan of Otterheim, like, is an obvious target for the early game, and then we can just keep hitting face with stuff, right? We've got some removals in Philadu and the Draconic Berserker, and now the Seasoned Merman that help us just stabilize the board and not run out of steam. But, you know, the big guns are obviously still the Forte and the Odin. And because of Odin being introduced into the deck and into the game, we're able to cut down on the Warrior of the Deeps. We still run a single 1 for that kind of just 6 to face, not even needing to swing. You could add more if you want, but obviously it's a very dead card in the early game. And even in the late game, it can be a bit of a dead card. Like if you really want to be playing this to finish the game rather than the game continuing. So there was the deck code. Next up, we had Cage Sword. Just going to quickly show you. Again, you can see very similar to the other sword decks that we showed you. But obviously, you've got the Cage Mitsu in there. Yeah, strong deck, you know, strong finishers. Just not as good as the other sword deck. Next up, Fenny Ramp. This is a slightly different version to what I showed you last week. I do have a pretty good deck guide up on Ramp, so definitely go check this out. But I wanted to show you this deck this week. It's kind of an interesting. It's actually running the Soaring Ivory Dragon. This was a list that I got where I think the guy got a 12 win streak at Master Diamond with it, which is really impressive. Yeah, an interesting tech with the Soaring Ivory Dragon. If you're in Overflow, draw a card, and it has Rush. So really, really powerful, because obviously once you've played Fenny, then cards are really cheap. So you want to draw into those cheap cards. So having the Soaring Ivy Dragon, it Obviously, you can play this out early game to help control the board, but I actually think it's a fantastic addition to this deck. I think it's a really cool tech. Also running a couple of the Burnites in here as well. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I'd like to play more with this deck. Definitely go and check it out. There's the QR code, guys. Right then. Okay, so into tier 4, we have got Control Haven, Stormhaven, Rose Queen combo. These are kind of meme decks, really. They're not... They're kind of ideas, the concepts that do exist, but they're not great. Stormhaven is, you know, it can be pretty powerful, but it's a bit slow. In some of its amulets are a little bit slow. Other classes can kind of do what it's trying to do, and they can just do it faster and better and easier. Rose Queen combo is just a really cool concept, which one day someone's going to do an amazing tournament winning deck with Rose Queen, right? You play her down, turn all your 1-drops into brambles, and just shoot face. Lots and lots of 3 damage to face and burst your opponent down. But again, they're a little bit memey. You can win games with them, but don't expect a solid win rate on ladder. You're not going to get that. Let's just quickly show you these decks. So you can do quite a late game kind of heal control type of thing, which is this deck is really just about using removal tools and healing, right? So you've got things like the new Immaculate Adjudicator, which just banishes something instantly. We've got things like heal in there, lots of heal, lots of removal, like things like Apollo, like controlling in the early game, lots of removal amulets, and then obviously into the late game we're looking for Cocytus. We've got Maeve to try and bring back Unholy Vessel, etc. This is a typical Storm deck, so you can see a little bit of a different thing here where we're using the packs, obviously. So we're looking for amulets here, right? Avian statues. We're trying to line up these Storm units that come out of the Wing statue and the Avian statue. We've got Sacred Griffin, which we can trigger, Super Evo, and then Unholy Vessel to clear the board, but Sacred Griffin will still stay alive. So yeah, and we've got the new Agnes Swiftblade in here as well. Makes sense because this is the Amulet deck. So there's the QR code if you want to play Amulet. And last but not least, the super meme. This is my Rose Queen deck, making use of things like the Dwarven Mallet Man because it's a nice mid-game unit to just kind of help you survive, basically, because you've got to get into that late game. Lamaga's similar as well, right? Stalling the game, enabling you to draw your pieces so that your opulent Rose Queen can go off. And actually, Titania is probably one of the best additions in this expansion, right? Because she gives you a free fairy every turn, which is obviously going to turn into a bramble for the Rose Queen when she goes off. All right, so there we go, guys. That is the Meta Snapshot for the 2nd of August. If you enjoy this content, guys, please subscribe to the channel, and a massive thanks to everybody who has. We're just about to hit 4K subs, so I'm so grateful for that. And keep hanging out in the comments. Keep letting me know if there's anything on here that you think, you know, maybe I've got wrong, or that you think I'm underplaying or overplaying. Then let me know in the comments kindly, and we'll have a nice conversation and discussion. With that said, guys, we are up. We have got some big news coming. Obviously, this weekend, we have now got the SVO Kickoff 2, so some big tournament news. So expect to see some more around meta decks that come out of the tournaments. And then on Monday, we have got Take 2, which was a nice surprise, right? They told us it was coming out early. So for those who don't know, it's a bit like draft mode in other games. So we're going to have a new way to play the game in just a couple of days. So that's going to be exciting. So look out for some draft content. I'm BJ the Brave. Thank you very much for your support. I'll see you guys in the next one.